You're live. Great. Hey, everybody. I am interested in trauma recovery, right? I'm Ellie, and I'm really interested in trauma recovery for a number of reasons. I know trauma is real, I know trauma brain is real. I have a background in psychology, a BA in psychology, and I've looked at trauma from a bunch of different perspectives. Um, so one of the places where trauma manifests is in money, and I can tell you that I kind of knew about money trauma when I heard my mother tell me a story about her grandparents. Now, my mother is the child of Holocaust survivors, and yes, the Holocaust really did happen. For those of you who are wondering, when they came over after being violently displaced and attempted to be extinguished. I'm just going to call about like a light being extinguished because that's really what it is um, when a person is killed. Um, and so there was trauma there, obviously. I don't know what they had to do to survive the war. I don't know what they did. I know my grandparents were separated for a period. I don't know what my grandmother went through while she was separated from my grandfather. I don't know. They're not around to talk about it, and they probably wouldn't want to revisit those memories. So there's definitely intergenerational trauma, and I'm interested in knowing what can be done about trauma. The whole idea of our worth, our self worth, the worth of our work, this whole idea of like manifesting and just think good and it will be good, it feels like it's missing something really deep. Let's take this for example. People come from all different faith traditions. As a person from the Jewish faith tradition, there are certain kind of ways in which we relate to God as our provider, our shepherd. We petition Him, we thank Him, and we request from Him, and we accept Him, and we turn things over to Him. We do this all the time. And inside of the religion, it can get kind of, oh, here we go with this again, praying 3 times a day. So I don't know about people from other faith traditions. I don't know about people coming from agnostic faith tradition. I know that for Jews there is this complication about what it says in one of our sacred texts. I'll say it in Hebrew and then I'll say it in English. It says, "Tfilat keva ena tachanunim." A fixed prayer is not supplication. So I thought let's delve a little deeper. And there's 2 different ways to look at literature on trauma. You could probably split it up many different ways, but one is where there is an acknowledgement of spirit and spirituality, and one is where it's just not acknowledged, it's not negated, it's not related to. Freud, for example, when he was, talking about religion, he, in his book Moses and Monotheism, or in another book, he basically dismissed religion. Um, in my psych research at UC Santa Cruz, I also tried reaching out to other psychologists, contemporary psychologists like Howard Gardner from Harvard. I think it was from Harvard School of Education. We tried talking about spirituality. Now, as a Jewish person, money is intimately spiritual. Food is intimately spiritual, and sexuality is intimately spiritual. I'll sign point here, and then I'm going to start looking at Nora's book here. Maybe we'll get a conversation with the author at some point. What happened when they were coming over the Atlantic? When my mother was, I think, 9 years old, she grew up, she was born in a displaced persons camp in Ulm, Germany. When I say displaced, I mean she never knew her grandparents, barely any of her relatives survived. Um, and then somehow came this opportunity to immigrate to the United States. They took this opportunity, and what happened on the boat? This is where I'm saying intergenerational trauma. My mother told me this story. She's not in the condition now to tell stories, but she said whatever savings her father had, he told her as a 9-year-old girl where it was, and he told her not to tell anyone. I'm sure he had great intentions, the best of intentions, the intentions to teach the skills of being street smart. He said to her as a 9-year-old girl, "Don't tell anyone where the money is. It's our whole life savings. If we lose this, we'll starve to death." Basically, that was the message he said to her. Then he told his friend to try to elicit the information out of her. Why was he doing that? Again, maybe to make her street smart, to toughen her up in case there was going to be some kind of other situation. where that would be an asset to be able to be. I'm on a live now, so please be quiet. If there was going to be another opportunity where that asset of being careful with who you share information with would be needed. Maybe he was trying to cultivate that in her. What it created in her, I'm sure, is trauma. Because, we have passwords with we don't do this, but you have passwords with your children so that they would know it's from your parent. But I grew up in the environment of my mother with that background, and my father, who grew up as also a displaced person, coming from a Jewish background, being in Iraq, where they were violently dispossessed in 51, to live in tent cities in the land of Israel. The tents would blow down. There was one room for 9 kids. There was one egg to feed a whole family. Again, food, money, and also intimacy, because with close quarters like that, that would create traumas around intimacy. Not having privacy, where parents do what they will do. So all these traumas. So I want to look at this through a lens. Why am I choosing this book, Getting Started in Money Recovery, Healing the Traumas That Drive Money Dysfunction? Is because I have had a glimpse at it, and my sense is that it does not negate the spiritual, right? So while I don't need a religious book, in fact, a religious book coming from a Jewish perspective, giving me all kinds of verses, might not get to the intergenerational traumatized me, part of me, because it might trigger off in me senses of entitlement, senses of worry, all kinds of senses. So to go something that's stepping back from religious, there are a lot of money talks on all kinds of YouTube channels for Jews, and go to a place that's spiritual. In other words, it's not going to require me to say any recitations that might create in me conflicts of different parts of me. Maybe my grandfather, Holocaust survivor part, who wanted to retain that connection with God, the God of Israel, and who also wanted to run away with it because communism was really taking form, better life, maybe opportunities to assimilate, things like that. And my rabbi grandfather from Iraq, these different ancestral parts of me, if we're looking at the genealogram, right? If they're in dialogue, there can be a stuckness. So let's dive in. Let's see what Nora's book says. I'm not going to read the whole book to you. It's obviously copywritten. And I want to invite you into this being a journey together. Anybody who feels that they've had some stuckness around money and would like to recover a sense that everything's going to be okay, a sense that their efforts aren't futile, that they don't have a sense of what was like impending doom, and would like freedom from that. Maybe an ability to be more organized. And we'll look, if you're neurodivergent, I might be neurodivergent. Used to be called ADHD and all these things. We're just gonna look at what the author has to share, and hopefully we'll have her as a guest in case we have questions. And again, I invite you to contact me. Give me a phone number 058. Plus 972 58 477 5306. You can rewind that if you need. If you WhatsApp me and you say, I'm interested in a study buddy or study group at this Getting Started in Money Recovery, Healing the Traumas That Drive Money. The book doesn't cost very much on Kindle at all. And we'll look at it together, and maybe the author will be available for Q&A sometimes. So that being said, this is my first time going at a Kindle book, and I'm doing it on my laptop, so bear with me. I'm on, so I'm just going to look at what we have. We have Getting Started in Money Recovery, Healing the Traumas That Drive Money Dysfunction. I'm going to look at the table of contents just to begin with here. And again, this isn't necessarily a Jewish study of money. I happen to be Jewish, and I'm happy if other Jews want to join me on the journey, you're welcome to. If Gentiles want to join me on the journey, you're welcome to. Introduction. So it says introduction, a little bit about me, and then we get to chapter 1. Do I belong in money recovery? Nora's money disease symptoms. Money fears. I see for money disease symptoms. It's relating to money and disease, and that's kind of a novel way to relate to the idea of money. Like there could be a disease around money. Money fears, overspending, Allergic to paperwork. Oh my God, I definitely can relate to that. For me, like I just did a bit of paperwork now, and I'm like, really reward myself. Something's like massive happened, and well, we'll look at what she has to write. This isn't about me. This is about um, looking at a way out of these things. This is avoidance of clarity and information. Dysfunction at work. Work is all caps for some reason. Deep feelings of worthlessness. I think a lot of people don't want to admit that, but if it sparks in you once in a while, like, oh my God, I'm worthless. Even if you like think you're worthless in somebody else's eyes because they say something, maybe they say, "Oh, can't believe you did that," and all of a sudden, like, ton of bricks, and you feel like some part of you going, "You think I'm worthless." It might not be true that they think you're worthless whatsoever. It might have to do with what she's calling here money disease. A twisted sense of survival, feeling unfit for life, becoming aware. I like how that chapter ends with becoming aware. Sounds like it's describing a problem and then transitioning. Chapter 2 says overwhelm is real. From what I understand about Nora, she does neuropsychology. She understands like the dynamics of the trauma brain, the neurology of the trauma brain. Goes right into chapter 3. That in itself is a whole chapter. Chapter 3 is what old timers tell newcomers. My first meeting, when old timers scare newcomers. It says, are you valuable today? You deserve to say no to nasty today. Next is chapter 4, the soft introduction to numbers, keeping our numbers, spending categories, spending plans, clarity day. Chapter 5, introducing PRGs, your PRG team. I know from glancing ahead that a PRG is a pressure relief group. How do I get people to give me a PRG? How does a PRG start? Actions small enough to work. That's cool. Shame should have already mastered everything. That's a acrostic, I guess you call it in English. The experts agree. Making an action plan. And then she says DA newcomer actions. DA actions in the first 1 to 3 years. Making a spending plan in your PRG. Ideal spending plans. What am I allowed to discuss in my PRG? Classic PRG assignments. How does a PRG end? How long does a PRG last? How often should I have a PRG? Chapter 6 is how do I get DA people to help me? The keys to connection with others in DA. Typical DA actions we support each other to do. We are all imperfect. My inner child needs babysitters. That's interesting. Chapter 7, how do I get DA people to talk to me? Scenario A, you like their share in a Zoom meeting. Scenario B, you like their share in a live meeting. Other scenarios, give your availability. What if someone picks up the phone when I call? Chapter 8, what newcomers tell old timers. Chapter 9, trauma drives the money disease. It starts with trauma. How trauma drives the disease. Avoidance as essential childhood survival. Essential there is all caps. The childhood software knows that pain is not safe. A joke too accurate. I'm not here. Recovering from avoidance. The magic door. The missing piece. The flat tire joke. I think I might know that one. Struggling to follow good advice. The good sleeper. Chapter 10, daily treatment. Plan 1 for the brand new DA person. Plan 2 for new-ish DA folks. Plan 3, in full swing of DA. Then action partners, then DA plus Al-Anon. Chapter 11, what is solvency? Unraveling our problems. The solvency day count. Calendars for bills. Autopay. Learning to spend only money we actually have. Spending that can be changed. Adding it up, we fail our way to success with help. Help is in capitals. I want to take a break here. DA is Debtors Anonymous. So this seems like this is coming from a place of how to interface, a guide to maybe how to interface with this spiritual program called Debtors Anonymous. Adding it all up, we fail our way to success with help. she talked here. We're signpost here. We're at 12. She talked about avoidance as essential childhood survival. We're all imperfect. These are great titles for chapters. We're going looking at chapter 12. Says the best meeting. How do I find good meetings? Wow. Then there's a whole list of meetings all over the world, evidently. Meetings, although. Why do we need so many meetings? A resentment and a coffee pot. Come to a meeting every day. DA people need help. What if I don't know who I like? Chapter 13, powerless but not helpless. Step 1. How do we admit complete defeat? Accidental trauma wisdom. Mechanisms of trauma. Bill's the new way of life. Cunning, baffling, powerful. The disease gains strength from negativity. I'll tell you, I've met Nora, and I'm really interested in kind of like hearing her experience on this. I want to jump and dig in as one who's never really been great about reading a book from the beginning. How do we make complete defeat? Accidental trauma wisdom. Now, I'm just in chapter 13 in the table of contents. I want to jump in and see just kind of a little bit what that might mean. It says trauma wisdom. Again, I'm getting new to reading these books. This is accidental trauma wisdom. The AA Big Book was written by Bill Wilson, co-founder of AA. Throughout the AA Big Book, Bill talks about alcoholism and as a threefold disease: physical, mental, and spiritual. I've come to believe that almost all addictive and self-destructive behaviors in adults begin as coping strategies during traumatizing childhoods. Because I use neuroscience in my daytime work to help people change behavior, I can tell you the trauma and the coping patterns that children develop to survive trauma do indeed live in the nerves and energies of the body. The neurons and synapses of the mind. Oh, that's what she calls it. Okay, great. And the emotions and electricity of the spirit. These coping patterns define our perceptions and our realities. So basically, the stuff that drove us to the depths of suffering from the DA disease is hardwired into us from head to toe. It doesn't matter how much someone tells us things to reassure us. It doesn't matter how much money or opportunity comes our way. One way or the other, our disease wiring will find a way to destroy anything that doesn't fit the paradigm of trauma from our childhood. That's interesting. That's interesting. Now, when I think like back on my parents and the models I saw around money, my father would always say things like, let's put down a down payment and start paying down a mortgage. And my mother would say, what if the property we buy depreciates? And he says, well, what if it appreciates? So I had these two very different models. And even, anyways, so interestingly, then it will, okay, so this is, then it will lie to us. Oh, back to what she's saying. One way or another, our disease wiring may find a way to destroy anything that doesn't fit the paradigm of trauma from childhood. Then it will lie to us and tell us that the world is just a miserable place. What I tell my clients is that we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. I'm not saying that bad things don't exist. The world can be a miserable place, but it can also be a miraculous place filled with love and abundance beyond our wildest dreams. What do I truly believe about the world? I believe that the world is infinite, that on this vast planet, in this even vaster universe, we can find infinite good and infinite bad, infinite love and infinite hate, infinite creation and infinite destruction. I also believe that the infinites of this world make a true fullness of perspective, impossible and incomprehensible to every tiny human brain. If we can tune our brains to discover slices of the infinite good, then our personal experience of the world will change. Those of us with the traumas that get us into DA have to be willing to completely unhook from the wiring of our childhood. Without ever understanding the science of the nervous system, Bill and the early AA members stumbled on a set of crucial ingredients for trauma healing and rewiring the nerves and synapses. In the first 60 pages of the big book, they hammered home that the physical, mental, and spiritual wiring inside an alcoholic would always bring him or her back to alcohol, no matter what high-minded commitments or intentions the alcoholic clung to. This turns out to be true of all compulsive behavior, and most compulsive behaviors start out as a survival strategy for trauma. She's got a footnote there, but I'm not going to go to it now. So, in order to rewire trauma synapses and nerves, we have to first admit that this misguided drive for survival is more powerful than our best logic and reason. In fact, much research shows that logic and reason are servants of survival. In other words, our survival drive guides our actions, and our rational mind justifies those actions. This is always true. We're never capable of thinking through triggering problems and making wait, is this always true? That's a question. Are we never capable of thinking through triggering problems and making prudent choices? The short answer is that making prudent choices when we feel even mildly disturbed requires taking many pauses and talking to safe humans. I'm on a live who can help us examine multiple perspectives. This way, we can ensure that our bodies feel safe and calm as we use our minds to evaluate options. Wow. Wow. What she just wrote is so clear, and it's such contemporary language. Um, really amazing. Now in bold, she writes here, when our bodies feel unsafe, our minds will justify almost anything to help us feel protected. Again, when our bodies feel unsafe, our minds will justify almost anything to help us feel protected. That is so. I mean, what I appreciate about this is that like it's really like we hear terminology like PTSD, right? And we hear terminology like narcissism. We hear terminology like um, all the DSM terminology. The DSM and the whole world that I came from in learning, even though I learned in UC Santa Cruz, and I almost went on to transpersonal psychology grad school, is like it was like psychology as an academic discipline is like broken down. You got humanistic, which is like just pushing it, and then you got transpersonal, which is like out there. There's only like two grad schools like that. But the mechanism, the mechanistic and the behavioral, it's like there wasn't there wasn't dialogue going on between these different parts, all the different departments, almost different disciplines. Um, that didn't know how to interact. And what I'm seeing here is like there's a way for all the parts to integrate and to interact. So again, I'm going to go back to where she was, and I'll go to the next page, and we're going to wrap up this section for now. Again, if you're finding this interesting and you'd like a study buddy to go through this book with, or to go through it with in a group, maybe even a group that we can, for no fees, make a time. We can make a daily time, a weekly time. If you feel like I need this, I wish I didn't, but I just something is just like unnecessarily complicated emotionally for me when it comes to money. Whether you have a lot or you have a little, whether it's been a trigger in your family, whether it has to do with like gift giving or asking for help or being asked for help, um, and you're interested, then reach out to me, um, and let's go on a journey together. Let's go through this. Let's go through this book together, and see what happens. Making sense to me, and it's also kind of like a bit of a beacon here, which he's saying. Accidental trauma wisdom. I'm on page, what says location 1282 on my Kindle, on my laptop. So, where was that? I'm gonna go on. This is okay. Picking up where we were on 1303 location. I don't know what page that is, but when our bodies feel unsafe, our minds will justify almost anything to help us feel protected. When I looked at myself honestly, when I look at myself honestly, I say that's true in my experience. Crazy things that I've done that only later have I said, "Wow, that was a that was a bit insane." My reaction to that. This explains why. And then when I would come kind of like to go like, wait, how did I do that? I'm not talking about like the time I put the milk in the freezer. Okay, that can be called absent-minded. But when the body feels unsafe, yeah, I could actually put the milk in the freezer. But trauma can lead to really, really, severe things, like trying to get out of a moving car because a sudden feeling of unsafe, and from going to professional mental health, psychiatry, psychology. There are different ways to work with that, but they all seem to not get to the root. So she goes on, she says, the trauma survivor programming creates a feeling of threat far more frequent than our DA disease body, in our DA disease bodies, than for people who had healthy enough childhoods. Um, Again, for me, healthy enough childhood is me seeing my parents fighting, not just disagreeing in some kind of respectful conflict way, but really like ruckus emotions and volumes and insults and hurt and leaving and coming back and around money. So comes a time when somebody can say, look, this intergenerational trauma, I want to say like the empowered husband, can't talk for wives, comes a time if he's got intergenerational trauma around romance or finance, says the buck stops here. I'm not going to pretend everything's going to be all right. I just make more money, make more money, make more money, because I know that from things that my ears have heard my mouth say, when I've been at my lowest, in other words, not my worst in terms of like moral condemnation on myself, but my lowest, most depleted, most like unresourced state, things that have come out of my mouth are like, here, take the money and you figure everything out. Now I'm being very vulnerable here, but to seriously like hand my wife my wallet and say something like, you think you're better at me than handling money? And if that were the worst that I'd said, and I only said it once, maybe I wouldn't go, maybe I need some money recovery and trauma, healing from trauma that drives money dysfunction. If it happened once, but if it's happened more than once, why not look at it? Why not look at it, since there are people and there is this book here, that seems like a safe enough way to look at it. So yeah, so there's the intergenerational, and then there's the biographical, and for a husband who's trying to be the husband that God wants him to be. I'm just going to use the G word, that higher power wants him to be, that the spirit of the universe, the sense of why he was born, wants him to be, and he knows there's some disconnect with how he's been interacting with money, with his family, with his, give you an example. If a child of mine says, I need this, and my mind goes, should I make them earn it, or should I just give it to them? Or if I give it to them, will I not have enough for myself? And that kind of like small-mindedness and rapid thinking, and or feeling like, well, if I don't get what I want, then nothing is worth anything. And I'm talking about broken, hurt parts of self. I'm not talking about that successful facade that I definitely have. I've been a small business owner for 14 years. I'm not bragging, but it's, number one ranked in what it does on Google and Facebook for 14 years. And, people love the service. I get great feedback. I get, a stream. We have 27 events booked right now. That's that facade part of me. That's that got myself together part of me. And when it comes to like these interactions around money, it's like a different me, right? So here we go. Some people, I guess, had healthy enough childhoods. So she says that's why DA people make choices that appear self-destructive. When we feel scared, those self-destructive avoiding choices help restore our feeling of safety. Sounds weird. She says when normies feel threatened, I guess a normie is somebody who had a healthy enough childhood, according to what this is saying, they don't usually have the knowledge that slowing down, taking pauses, connecting, live with other safe people. I don't know why short connecting, live with other safe people, and making sure that their bodies feel safe before their minds engage with ideas is vital to breaking the survival drive's capacity to twist the rational mind. So she's talking about there's something called the survival drive and the rational mind. She says that there is a twisting of the rational mind that the survival drive does. And these people who are called normies, she's calling normies, don't have knowledge that slowing down, taking pauses, connecting live with other safe people. Not, I guess that means connecting live, not recordings of talks, but talking to somebody safe, and making sure their bodies feel safe before their minds engage with ideas is vital to breaking the survival drive's capacity. These things are vital, she's saying. This is why so many seemingly sane people devolve into nasty political arguments on social media. The social media algorithm drive viewing by the social media algorithms drive viewing by driving emotions as rapidly and strongly as possible. The fastest emotions are fear and anger. So the algorithms naturally magnify fear and anger, which then magnifies viewing. She goes on, she says, in 2017, Facebook's global creative director, Andrew Keller, announced that the average social media user scrolls 300 feet of content per day. Whoa. That's about the height of the Statue of Liberty, which is 305 feet, folks. Wow. Most people don't realize how much of their attention has been eaten by survival mindset because no one ever explained how to notice when their bodies are in fear, anger, so that they could take pauses to become peaceful. Plus, most people don't have hundreds of wise, humble, kind humans to call with big questions in the hopes that they can make peaceful, prudent choices. Luckily, the whole structure of DA is designed to help us do exactly those things. So basically, by coming to DA, you've hit the jackpot, which is interesting because from what I've had a little bit of exposure to some other 12-step literature, they talk about hitting bottom. Here's talking about hitting jackpot. Don't know so much about DA. I'm getting that this is a recovery community. She says, in my professional life, I give a lot of speeches and workshops, and I talk very frankly about neuroscience and trauma. I wonder if I send her a link to this live, if that's even possible. Share screen, share. If she might join us, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. Let's just take a let's see. Hi, Nora. I'm reading your book on live here. Whoa. Let's see. Nora. When you meet somebody and they've authored a book on an interesting topic and they're willing to talk to you, that's the coolest. Okay, so let's jump back into it. I just love that sentence, and I want to thank her for writing this book. Yeah, I'm on a YouTube live, Nora. I am looking at this cool book called Getting Started in Money Recovery, and inviting people. I mean, I haven't announced that this is live. I just kind of wanted to record it, kind of experimental, and giving like tasters of it to my quote unquote audience. And if people are interested, they can join me in a study buddy or a study group on it. So I just talked a little bit about my thoughts and experiences with with money trauma, and then I started reading from the beginning, the table of contents, till I got to this section, and I love this sentence: "Says when our bodies feel unsafe, our minds will justify almost anything to help us feel protected." I just want to take a second. Nobody's watching this except if you are, but it'll be saved. And then if you look at it and you say, "Yeah, you've got my blessing to keep going." I just want to thank you for writing it. I'm finding it very clear and compassionate, and I'm finding it bridging a lot of different worlds. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm going to keep going. Do you want to be on with me as I read a little bit more? You don't have to. That's being of service, and that's a need. That's amazing. I'm going to keep going here. Um, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm telling everybody I know who for whom it's relevant to buy the book and connect with me, and let's do a study buddies on it. And if you're available ever for question Q&A on any of it, how cool. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. If you send me a link, I'll put it in the description here. I'm just talking to Nora now. For those of you who aren't here in the conversation, she says she's happy to talk to people about the book. She's happy to go through it. She has a podcast, and I really appreciate all that you're doing here. I'll just say one thing, which is that as I as I as I got through some of the like, and as one reads out loud, they're like, is that a typo or is it just a novel way to use words? And it said like, what was it? Live. I can't remember where it was on the page. It said, or live. It says connecting live with other safe people. I love that phrase, connecting live. So while I would love to listen to your podcast, like while I'm driving and whatnot, is that this work is about connecting live. I just read your whole thing about social media in the world where it's like, I'll listen to it later while I'm driving, washing the dishes. Is like there's something on fire, you know? Yeah. All right. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna finish this section, and so yeah, send me your podcast link, and I'll put it in the description. You're awesome. Bye. Okay, so I'm still live. Sorry for the interruption, but that was the real author of the book, which is so cool because healing trauma is so cool. Okay, so where was I? So I learned now from the call she has a podcast. There's no affiliate link here. I'm gonna do my best to give you the link to the book. There's no money being made. She gets a little bit for each book that gets sold. This is about healing trauma. And if you know me, or if you just connect with me now for the first time, I've got my business, and I've got my family, and I've got my healing, my healing trauma, and my communal work in healing trauma, which includes movement and yoga and dance and dancing in the street and rollerblading and EMDR and music therapy, and lots of other stuff. Making music communally, and then just connecting, because community is super important to me. Especially for healing, So this is purely in those, not necessarily altruistic, because there's also an enlightened self-interest that's going on here, but not selfishly, more communally enlightened self-interest. And I'll just be completely honest, is like, when I'm looking at financial decisions, part of me goes like, ooh, I could do that. And it's like a little extra excitement of like, somebody calls me and says, hey, we can give you a loan right now. And part of me is like, ooh, if I had that loan, I could do this and this. And my neurology starts getting fired up of like, beyond logical, which is why I liked her sentence here, is like logically I can say, well, if I'm going to get a 10,000 shekel loan right now, what I could do is, and think categorically, put some into investing in passive income, investing in some new equipment for my business, investing in some marketing, or some, something that's going to make money, or something that's going to be self-care or enjoyment, or putting things aside for retirement or the kids, or paying down some debts here. My brain goes like, oh, I can, do everything I want, which is not true. Because 100,000 shekels is 100,000 shekels. It's not 100,000 shekels and 1 shekel. And so when I look at that phenomenon in myself, I go, something in me needs healing. There is and has been and continues to be and is, thank good Lord, big healing that's been happening for me in the realm of romance. And now I'm ready for those breakthroughs in finance. When I say the realm of romance, is like, I used to think that my worth depended on how other people viewed me, body image issues. Am I too hairy? I used to think, am I ever going to get married because I'm too hairy? And even as I was married, I thought, wow, geez, one day my wife's going to go, you're just too hairy. 6 kids later, 6 kids and 20 years later marriage. There's this part of me that still goes, she's going to go, you're too hairy. I just can't be married to you anymore. And so healing around that sense of like, my value and security depend on how attractive I am to my mate. So yes, I've had tremendous healing in the romance, and now I'm ready for healing in the finance. If this is interesting to you, let's connect, let's do it. Okay, let's finish off this chapter. I'm not going to, in Hebrew say litakev, I'm not going to stay on each sentence for very much longer. This is just jumping into the book in the first place that said, read me, to I was reading the table of contents. Why? Because I know that there's psychological components here. I know it's not just spiritual. That's why I was never satisfied with like, I'll just be in a seminary and I'll just pray to God for the success. And I saw people from that working. I work hard in my job, in my career, in my entrepreneurial endeavors. And I used to have neighbors who didn't work at all. They completely went on what God sends them. And that was like, for me, I'm just going to use the word extreme. It wasn't a good match. I don't have to label it as extreme. And then I saw people who just work, and they would work every day of the week. They had no Sabbath. They had no sacred day or time where they say, I don't work. and I've lived my life that way. I've taken almost every opportunity to earn money that has been presented to me in periods of my life, um, without like real sense of like, am I connected to my values? I had a huge shift when I was around 23 when I left a amazing job in an amazing place with an amazing company with amazing people to begin keeping Sabbath, which precluded me being able to do that. So that was a huge emotional shift. That was a huge spiritual shift, and that continues. And I need the support to kind of like hold that, right? I need the support to hold that because I do have this trauma component that I'm aware of. Okay, I didn't want to have it. I didn't want to admit it was a component in my being. But when I did, and when I looked into the world of treatment for it, I'm seeing in the realm of finance, romance, and now I'm looking into the realm of finance. Miracle shifts of tremendous, tremendous, tremendous proportion, and I'm ready. So here we go. So she says, when our bodies feel unsafe, our minds will justify almost anything to help us feel protected. The trauma survivor programming creates a feeling of threat far more frequent in our DA disease bodies than for people who had healthy enough childhoods. That's why DA people make choices that appear self-destructive. What could that look like? That could look like, look, I'm getting pressure to pay 2 bills, and I know that if I pay these 2 bills, that when that other expense is going to come out, there's not going to be coverage for that, but I really want to get these bills paid before they balloon. Um, and just go, I'm going to do that without talking to anybody, without connecting with that rational part of the brain, just feeling like I have to or I'm going to die. I have to do something that's an act of self-compromise or I'm going to die. She says, when we feel scared, those self-destructive avoidant choices help restore our feeling to safety. That's a tremendously interesting statement. She says, when normies feel threatened, they don't usually have the knowledge that slowing down, taking pauses, connecting live with other safe people, and making sure their bodies feel safe before their minds engage with ideas is vital to breaking the survival drive's capacity to twist the rational mind. I guess that's what somebody who's qualified for DA um, is probably, this didn't have that healthy enough childhood, and they have a challenge, an opportunity of breaking the survival drive's capacity to twist the rational mind. She goes on, this is why so many seemingly sane people devolve into nasty political arguments on social media. Oh, we already read this. She's talked about the jackpot, right? She says, so basically coming to DA, you've hit the jackpot. She says, in my professional life, I give a lot of speeches and workshops, and I talk very frankly about neuroscience and trauma. I've been asked many times if I believe that certain people are just plain bad or evil. Here's how I respond. I don't believe that any human is all bad. I think some folks are sicker than others, and I think certain actions like murder, genocide, stealing, creating marketing campaigns that hurt humans and the environment in order to drive profits higher, etc., are very bad. Um, but I'm afraid of something far worse than the notion that some people are just bad. I'm afraid of the fact that the human capacity for rationalizing is infinite. Every heinous action that we look back on in history was perpetrated by a group of people who had a structured, rational logic to their actions. From the outset, we might label this mindset as self-righteous. I'm here in a war zone, folks. I'm in Israel, post October 7th, 2023. We're actually in May. The war is going on, and this is just really, really interesting that this is what God is putting before me to read. We're almost done, but I do want to go into the next section, maybe. She says, it is this ability to see ourselves as reasonable when we are doing destructive things that scares me the most. It is also this ability that drives the way we DA people, hurt ourselves and other people when the dominating our perspective. I'm intrigued to continue. Please God, this is all with her permission. Mind you, I just jumped in kind of to the middle of the book here towards the end. She says the mechanisms of trauma. The mechanism of trauma in the brain nervous systems go, the mechanics of trauma in the brain / nervous system go like this. I'm going to use funny voices because sometimes I come over my words and my mouth doesn't make the right sound, and I don't want to sound stupid, so I'll intentionally put on an accent. So you'll still understand me, but I'm going to have a little fun at the same time, and I'm not be so conscious of like, I can do a little bit of a cartoony voice or a southern accent or a kind of another accent. See, I heard that do-do-do. That means there's an inquiry in my CRM about my business, but I do want to go into this next section, and thank God, like my business is set up where like there's automations and people can get to the information they need, a lot of it, without me. So that's just a gratitude I want to practice. The mechanics of trauma. The mechanics of trauma in the brain / nervous system go like this. Deeply painful experiences left a permanent threat imprint on the brain nervous system. That permanent imprint holds the perception that this threat is currently in the present rather than in the past. It's not always nearby in the past, but as soon as an external